Hello and welcome back to the Hazzabhajan YouTube channel. It is Harry here, and today it is time to continue on with this mini-series that I'm running at the moment where I rank every single team in a particular league based purely on their longest serving managers. And today it is the turn of Serie A. Now, once I've covered all of Europe's top 5 leagues in this series, with the Bundesliga and the Liga A being the only ones left to feature after this one, I will do a video where I rank every single one of them in order, so all the way from 1st to 98th, covering every single team from the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, Bundesliga and Liga A. Although there will be a couple of changes from the Premier League and La Liga videos, since I did those videos covering the 2020-21 teams and not the 2021-22 teams, as I have done, or will do, for the Serie A, Bundesliga and Liga A. So hopefully that makes sense, but enough jibber jabber, let's get into ranking every single Serie A club by their longest serving manager. 20th, Salernitana with Giuseppe Viani. Much like with La Liga, the team in Serie A who have the shortest serving, longest serving manager, if that makes sense, haven't had one manager who has seen a third season in charge of the club. They have had 3 managers who have spent 2 seasons there though, but Giuseppe Viani is the only one out of those 3 who was the incumbent manager of the club during a leap year, which means that, albeit on a technicality, he comes out on top. However, he did actually spend 2 separate spells at Salernitana which lasted exactly 2 years, with the first coming between 1941 and 1943, and the second one, the stint which earns him the place in this video, spanning from 1946 until 1948. There isn't really much to write home about when it comes to what happened during Viani's time at the club, so instead I'll tell you that they are actually in a little bit of trouble at this moment in time, as their owner also owns Lazio, and Serie A rules state that no one can own 2 clubs in the same division. So despite winning promotion from Serie B last season, they may not even be able to participate in Serie A in the upcoming season if the situation isn't resolved before too long. 19th, Spezia with Sergio Carpanesi. This upcoming campaign will be Spezia's second in Serie A, following on from their debut campaign last time out, in which they finished in a respectable 15th place. That would have seemed like a pipe dream for the club's fans back in 1986, the year when Sergio Carpanesi took charge of the club, as they were stuck in Serie C1, although they had been promoted from Serie C2 the previous season, under the guidance, peculiar enough, of Carpanesi. He left Spezia at the start of the 1986-87 season to be replaced by future Italy manager Gianpiero Ventura, but after 12 games and just 1 win, Ventura was sacked and Carpanesi came back to guide the club to safety. They were finishing 6th and 3rd in his next 2 seasons, but in 1989-90 they were mired in relegation trouble and Carpanesi was given his marching orders with 10 games left to go. It says approximately on the transition because I don't know the exact days which he joined and left the club, but there is information of which match days he took charge of Spezia for the 1986-87 season, and of course when he got sacked in the 1989-90 season. So with that, I've rounded it to 1193 days as my absolute best guess, but it could be anywhere within a 7-day radius either side of that. 18th, Sassuolo with Eusebio Di Francesco. Eusebio Di Francesco will always hold a special place in the hearts of Sassuolo fans, since it was under his guidance that the club first won promotion to Serie A back in 2013, where they have remained ever since. 4 wins in their first 21 games was enough to convince the board that Di Francesco needed to depart, but his replacement, Alberto Malesani, lost all of his 5 games as manager and he was swiftly replaced by Di Francesco, who steered the club away from trouble. He then helped them finish 6th and qualify for the Europa League in 2015-16, but he left in the summer of 2017 to take up the Roma job, where he oversaw that famous comeback win over Barcelona in the Champions League quarter-finals in 2018. Regardless, his 3 and a bit season stint as manager of Sassuolo is the longest official stint that I could find, although the club's early years were in the amateur leagues, and manager data, as far as I could tell, isn't provided, so if I am wrong, please do let me know. 17th, Empoli with Silvio Baldini. One of Italy's ultimate yo-yo clubs, Empoli have gone through 6 separate relegations from the top tier since 1986, and, of course, 6 promotions back to Serie A, with one of them coming in the recently concluded 2020-21 season when they finished 4 points above Salernitana in 2nd. Their longest serving coach, Silvio Baldini, also oversaw a promotion, with his coming in 2002, 2.5 seasons after he took charge, and he led the club to mid-table safety in the 2002-03 season, with his good work at the club being recognised by recently relegated Palermo, who hired him in 2003. The move didn't work out well for either party, as Empoli were relegated in 2003-04 and Baldini was sacked after just 6 months by Palermo's temperamental ex-president Maurizio Zamparini, who went through 40 managerial changes in just 15 years as club president. 16th, Venezia with Carlos Alberto Quadio. Venezia are the final recently promoted team to feature in this video after they managed to beat Cittadella 2-1 on aggregate in the promotion playoff to compete in Serie A for the first time since 2002. We must go back to the 1950s to find when Carlos Alberto Quadio was in charge of Venice's finest outfit, and to all intents and purposes, it was pretty successful, as he won promotion from Serie C1 in his first season before challenging for promotion to Serie A over the next 2 seasons by coming in 5th and 3rd. They took a step back in 1959, finishing in 9th, and it was that summer that Quadio departed, but after a season of scraping safety, Venezia did what Quadio couldn't do whilst at the club, and that was to win Serie B to compete in the Promised Land once more, where they spent 2 seasons before being relegated again. 15th, Atalanta with Gianpiero Gasperini. The only incumbent manager in this video, Gianpiero Gasperini is without doubt Atalanta's greatest ever manager, and earlier this season he overtook Stefano Colantuomo's record to become their longest serving manager too. His attacking brand of football has seen the Bergamo outfit win a lot of respect from neutrals across the continent, as they've been the top scoring team in Serie A for each of the past 3 seasons, including hitting 98 goals in 2019-20, and it has brought 3 successive seasons of Champions League football, including reaching the quarter-finals in 2019-20. Believe it or not, it actually looked like Gasperini would be sacked within just 5 games of taking charge of the club back in 2016, as he won just 1 and lost the other 4, but the club stuck with him, and I think it's fair to say that that decision has paid dividends. He will also overtake 13th place before too long, but for now he comes in at 15th. Join 13th, Udinese with Giuseppe Bigogno. A club who I always thought had achieved more success than they actually have, that perception may have been skewed slightly by the presence of Antonio Di Natale in their squad for a good few years, and considering he was high rated on FIFA 14, I simply presumed that Udinese were absolute powerhouses, but alas, they don't even have 1 major trophy in their cabinet. However, they did win a title of some sort whilst Giuseppe Bigogno was in charge between 1953 and 1958, although it was the Serie B title in 1956, as they earned promotion back to Serie A at the first time of asking after suffering relegation in 1955. He left in 1958 to join Inter Milan, although he returned to Udinese 2 years later, but this time around he would only spend 1 season there before leaving in 1961. Join 13th, Cagliari with Arturo Silvestri. One-time Serie A champions Cagliari were the first ever team based south of Rome to win the Serie A title when they lifted it in 1970, but it was Manlio Scopigno, their second longest serving manager of all time, who was in charge of Cagliari during their moments of glory. His 4 years there weren't enough to overtake Arturo Silvestri's 5-year reign at the club, which only actually concluded 4 years before their title win in 1970, and Silvestri was the man to take them from the depths of Serie C1 to Serie A in 1964, which was the first promotion to the top flight in the club's history, but within 2 years he was lured away from Sardinia to Milan to take charge of AC, winning a Coppa Italia in his only season at the San Siro. 12th, Roma with Niels Lidholm. One of the famed Correno lead tried into AC Milan during his playing days, Niels Lidholm undoubtedly had his best managerial spell whilst in charge of Roma. He won 2 Coppa Italias, reached a European Cup final in 1984, although they lost to Liverpool, and won a league title with them in 1983, only the second in the club's history, but he should have won 2, as in their crucial third to last game against title rivals Juventus in the 1980-81 season, Roma's winning goal was incorrectly disallowed for offside, and they lost the title to Juventus by 2 points. Regardless, Lidholm stuck around from 1979 until 1984, but he is only Roma's longest serving manager by just 9 days, as Fabio Capello also took charge for 5 seasons between 1999 and 2004, but his 1,818-day spell there is just edged out by Lidholm's 1,827-day stint. 11th, Fiorentina with Giuseppe Galluzzi. Admittedly, this does come with a slight asterisk, as Giuseppe Galluzzi's spell in charge of Roma was, barring 1 month in 1945, entirely during World War II, although football did continue uninterrupted in Italy until 1943, the year in which Mussolini was arrested and the Italians surrendered to the Allies. In spite of all the chaos that was going on around him, Galluzzi, upon becoming player manager in 1939, won the club's first major trophy in the form of a Coppa Italia in 1940, as well as achieving 2 separate third-place finishes in 3 seasons. By the time football resumed in Italy as per normal in 1946 after a 3-year hiatus, Galluzzi had been replaced by Guido Ara, who wouldn't even make the end of the calendar year. 10th, Sampdoria with Vujadin Boškov. A man who is loved all across Italy for his exuberant but affable personality, there is even a book highlighting all of Vujadin Boškov's most famous quotes, including one which has gone down in Italian folklore, that being, quote, "When the referee blows his whistle, it's a penalty," close quote. The Bulgarian is forever loved by Sampdoria fans, as he was the man in the dugout when they won their only Serie A title in 1991, before reaching the European Cup final in 1992, although they would lose 1-0 to Barcelona's dream team thanks to a Ronald Koeman free kick. That summer, he would move on to Roma, which brought the curtain down on his 6 seasons that he spent at Sampdoria, a record matched by no one in Sampdoria's history, but he would return between 1997 and 1998 for one last hurrah. 9th, Napoli with Eraldo Bonseglio. A controversial figure owing to his close allegiances with Mussolini, even being Il Duce's personal trainer for a little while, Eraldo Bonseglio's managerial career began in 1946 at Como, before moving to Prosesto in 1947 and then Napoli in 1949. A World Cup winning defender with Italy as a player in 1934 and 1938, he took Napoli out of the doldrums of Serie B in 1950 and made them a regular top half Serie A side over the next 5 seasons. But in 1955-56, in which they would go on to finish in a lowly 14th, Bonseglio left the club, although I don't know whether he left on his own accord or was sacked. 8th, AC Milan with Carlo Ancelotti. One of the most successful Italian managers of the modern era, Carlo Ancelotti has won league titles in Italy, Germany, France and England, the country in which he currently manages, as he is in charge of Everton's underachieving squad, although he has been heavily linked with the vacant Real Madrid managerial post and even said by Marta to have been confirmed as Madrid's new manager, although no official confirmation has been made as of the time of this recording. His most trophy-laden spell was this stint at AC Milan, as he took charge midway through the 2001-02 season and left in 2009 to take charge of Chelsea, winning 2 Champions Leagues, 1 Serie A and 1 Coppa Italia along the way, and managing the likes of Cafu, Andrei Shevchenko, Kaká, Paolo Maldini and Alessandro Nesta, amongst of course a plethora of others. Ancelotti also won the Serie A and the European Cup twice as a player at the San Siro with AC in the late 1980s and early 1990s, and including various Super Cups, he was able to lift 15 trophies with AC as either a player or a manager. Safe to say, he's one of their most iconic figures of all time. 7th, Inter Milan with Helenio Herrera. The most iconic purveyor of the Catenaccio style of play, Helenio Herrera would frequently play with a sweeper, encourage his fullbacks to attack on the counter, and dismiss teams who willingly held onto the ball for long spells, meaning that I'm sure he would have strongly despised Pep Guardiola had he been around to see the Spanish manager in full flight. A disciplinarian to the nth degree, whilst at Roma, he forced one of his players, Giuliano Tacola, who was suffering from a heart murmur at Herrera's knowledge, to play in a game and then train with the squad in cold and windy conditions, which only worsened Tacola's condition and led to him dying in the Roman changing room after a game against Cagliari. However, Herrera did spend 8 extremely successful years at Inter Milan, winning 3 straight Serie A's between 1963 and 1965 and the European Cup in 1964 and again in 1965, before a breakdown in relations with the board saw him leave acrimoniously in 1968 to join Roma, where he lasted until 1970 despite the death of Tacola the year prior. 6th, Hellas Verona with Osvaldo Bagnoli. Much like Boškov at Sampdoria, Osvaldo Bagnoli was the man to lead his club to their only Serie A title in their history in 1985, in his case, Hellas Verona. Despite only winning 15 of their 30 games that season, they benefited from all of Italy's other major players having off-seasons to swoop in and claim the sole major honour in the club's history. Bagnoli had taken the reins 4 years prior and reached 2 Coppa Italia finals in 1983 and 1984, although they lost both of them, but amidst a cloud of financial uncertainty, they were relegated back to Serie B in 1990, and Bagnoli left the club to join Genoa. 5th, Torino with Vittorio Pozzo. A man who is more famous for being the Italy manager for their first two World Cup triumphs in 1934 and 1938, Vittorio Pozzo's time at Torino was actually under the name of a technical director, but the sources I used to research this video all agreed that he was, in essence, a manager, and as such, his spell of just under 10 years at Torino is more than any other in the club's history. If you want to be pedantic, then Gianpiero Ventura's 5-year spell between 2011 to 2016 was as an official manager, but I'm counting Pozzo for the purposes of this video, so he comes in at 5th. He stayed in Turin from 1912 until 1922 and finished in the top 5 in every regional league the club took part in, barring one. But of course, some of those years were taken away from him by World War I, namely 1915 to 1919. 4th, Juventus with Giovanni Trapattoni. Although the original answer was the man who was supposedly Juventus' first head coach, Domenico Donna, it turns out that he was actually one of the founding players of the Juventus team, and whilst he may well have been the player manager, it still would have been for just under 10 years, as opposed to the 11 it is reported that he was the manager for, given that he apparently took up the post in 1900 and left in 1910. As such, by presumably a matter of days, the correct answer is Juventus' most successful manager of all time, Giovanni Trapattoni, who actually spent 2 separate spells managing the old lady, but this was first between 1976 and 1986, rather than his second from 1991 until 1994, which earns him the spot in this video. He won 6 Serie A's in his 10 years there, as well as 2 Coppa Italias, a European Cup Winners' Cup, 2 UEFA Cups, and a European Cup in 1985, albeit marred by the Hazel disaster. And he was spearheaded by a defence containing Claudio Gentile and Gaetano Scirea, with Dino Zoff in goal, something which suited Trapattoni's defensive style of play down to the ground. 3rd, Bologna with Hermann Felsner. Austrian manager Hermann Felsner spent 16 years at Bologna over 3 different stints, with one of them lasting from 1920 until 1931, thus making him, by a country mile no less, their longest serving manager of all time. During those first 11 years, he won 2 Italian football championships, including the very last one before it became the Serie A in 1929, but they were able to manage the transition very well, as by 1941 they'd won 4 more Serie A championships. Felsner was in charge for 2 of them, namely the triumphant 1938-39 and 1940-41 seasons, and although he also managed the likes of Fiorentina, Genoa and AC Milan, it was at Bologna where he achieved his greatest success, which is hardly surprising given that he only lasted for 3 years in Florence and 1 at both Genoa and Milan. 2nd, Genoa with William Garbett. Like many English managers who moved abroad during football's early days, William Garbett was a thinker about the game willing to spread his ideas across the continent, and his influence was most greatly felt in Italy, with Vittorio Pozzo describing him as the most important figure in Italian football history, and all of this means that I will probably do a video on him at some point, because that's just what I do. He earned a spot in this video by virtue of spending 15 years in charge of Genoa from 1912 until 1927, revolutionising the Italian game by introducing sessions on tactics to his players, and it clearly worked, as he won 3 separate championships with them in 1915, 1923 and 1924. He was also the man who made the first ever transfers in Italy, which involved money being exchanged during the transfer, and he would come back to Genoa from 1937 until 1940, and again once World War II was over, but he wasn't able to win any more silverware with them in that time. 1st, Lazio with Guido Baccani. The team who takes top spot for Serie A is Lazio, as Guido Baccani was appointed by the Rome outfit in 1908 and stayed with them until 1924, giving him a total of 16 years in sole charge of the club. He had been the technical director of Lazio for 2 years between 1906 and 1908 alongside a couple of other people, before being given the title of sole manager, spending most of that time in the Amateur Southern League, finishing no lower than 4th in his 8 seasons and reaching the final of the Italian League on 3 separate occasions, although they lost all of them. Baccani trumps all of La Liga's longest serving managers, but if he was in the Premier League video then he would only finish in around joint 14th, which goes to show that clearly, if you want true managerial stability, you have to be a manager of an English club and preferably before the 1990s, which sadly is impossible to do nowadays. But that about wraps up today's video ranking every single Serie A club for the 2021-22 season based on their longest serving manager from lowest to highest, and if you did enjoy the video, of course don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you have not done so already. You can check out the Premier League video and the La Liga video if you want to. They are recent uploads, so they'll be on my channel pretty high up, so you'll be able to find them quite easily if you want to give them a watch, and of course the Bundesliga and Liga videos will follow suit. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you then.